So, today we've got a bit of a doozy. I don't know who sent me this, I can't remember, but today I took a look at Pyrite Adventure 2. I do remember that they specifically mentioned that they knew that I did not like Sonic games very much and have been very critical of them in the past, but they sent me this anyway. And I decided to take a look after clicking on it because it looked, kind of alright. And I decided to play it, and I can say that it was very much kind of alright. That said, there were some problems. But I almost sort of want to split this video into two. The normal Eclipse critic brain, and then there's the Clear Passion project that was created by two people and isn't intended to make any money or do anything crazy brain. So we'll start off with critic brain, and then we'll get into the other one later on. Pyrite Adventure 2 is quite literally just a Sonic Adventure game reskinned and recreated in Roblox. Now, to be clear, I've not played any of the Sonic Adventure games, but I know enough about them to know that that's exactly what this is. I also know from footage I've seen that I think it's the first or second stage in the game is basically entirely lifted from Sonic 06. Including the part of the stage where a whale shows up and destroys part of the level. So I don't think they were trying to hide this very hard. That, on top of the game mechanics probably being almost completely identical, and all of the music from the game almost assuredly coming from Sonic games, it's pretty clear what they were making here. Now, as far as I understand, this isn't a notoriety situation where we've got a game that is quite literally just directly one-to-one cloned into Roblox and they didn't even try, so I'm not going to get on their ass too hard about this stuff, but I do think it's important to mention it. Now, because this is a very Sonic-inspired game, it has a lot of the problems that I have with Sonic games here, so I'm gonna re-go over them for anyone who's missed them in the past. I will say, having basically no experience with any of the 3D Sonic games, as most of my Sonic criticisms come from the 2D games, of which I've played the first one, didn't like it, and have never played any of the other ones, some of the stuff that's problematic in those 2D games is not present in here, but unfortunately, some of the other stuff is. The first and probably most benign is when it comes to the game literally playing itself. I don't know if people consider this a nitpick or not. I don't know if this is just a me thing, but I cannot stand when the game takes control away from me and just has me watch the game play itself. When I log on to play a game, I'd like to be in control of my character for most, if not all, of the gameplay that I'm doing. And to be fair, you are in control of your character for most of this game, but there are a lot of points where you jump onto a boost pad or what have you, and it launches you into this state where you can unironically just take your hands off the keyboard and do nothing, and it does everything for you. I just can't stand when games do that. Sonic games are the most notorious for doing it, and it drives me crazy. Now, on a much more problematic note that's directly related to the idea of the game playing itself, we can talk about these boost pads that are on the ground, because these things are a fucking nightmare. I don't know how they're handled in the 3D Sonic games, but the way they're handled here is so incredibly obnoxious, and that mostly stems from the fact that when you get on a boost pad, it instantly switches your camera angle to be facing the way the boost pad is going. Now, I'm pretty sure I understand why they did this. They wanted to make sure that if you were holding forward and a boost pad was on a 90-degree angle, that if you continued holding forward, you wouldn't just immediately launch yourself off the map. But there had to have been a better way of doing this, because not only is it extremely jarring and consistently confused the hell out of me when I'd start going right after hitting a boost pad and then it just would stop me or run me off the map because I expect to do that, but it whips the camera the other way. But I've also mentioned in previous videos that I am somewhat prone to motion sickness, especially when it comes to camera shake in games, but never in my life did I think that I would have motion sickness when it came to jarring camera switches. Not sure why, but this definitely caused it. There were some times where I was playing where I just had to stop, sit there, take a minute to collect myself, and then keep playing. I got better with it later on as I came to expect the camera changes, but at the beginning, It was awful. Now, other gameplay problems do exist, and the other two most notable ones definitely stem from your homing attack. In Pirate Adventure 2, you have two attacks. If you press Q, you'll roll forwards, where if anything is in your way, it'll get killed. But the much more practical attack is that if you jump again in the air and you're close enough to an enemy, it will automatically home in onto them and kill them. Now, just like in Sonic games, enemies in Pirate Adventure are not exactly enemies, more so that they are obstacles, I suppose. Nothing directly goes out of its way to attack you in this game, and the vast majority of the time, you're using enemies in order to bounce off of them with your homing attack to gain distance or height to get to the next platform. So really, enemies are more of a means to an end when it comes to increasing the interesting factor of platforming, and less so something that's directly trying to kill you. I mean, I suppose they could if you just slam into it without pressing your homing attack, but realistically that's never gonna happen. That said, I mentioned that there were problems with the homing attack, and there are two big ones that heavily hinder the experience and are really annoying. The first is that every once in a while, you'll use the homing attack to hit an enemy, you'll successfully hit them, and then the game will just not bounce you into the air like it's supposed to. What's supposed to happen when you hit an enemy at the homing attack, as I'm sure you've seen, is it bounces you up so that way you can get some height and distance and get to the next enemy. But sometimes the game just decides, no, we're not going to do that. And so the game just flat out doesn't work and kills you. And that feels terrible every time it happens. I'm also almost certain that when you have an energy shield active, which prevents you from taking damage, it guarantees this bug to happen no matter what. Meaning that once you figure this out, you have to avoid the energy shields like the plague and not get power-ups on purpose, because if you get them, then they have the chance of killing you. What the fuck? And the other major problem with the homing attack is one of the most questionable design decisions I've seen in a hot minute, and that's that sometimes, and let me stress this, sometimes, when you go off of a spring, the game will not let you homing attack. The reason this is so baffling is exactly what I just said. Sometimes. You would assume in this game, if you haven't used your homing attack yet, and you jumped onto a spring and it launched you into the air, and there was an enemy right in front of you that you could very clearly get to, if you pressed the homing attack button, it would go and kill them. But like 60-70% of the time, that doesn't happen. And so you go to press the button, it doesn't do anything, you kill yourself, and then feel like an idiot. But you shouldn't feel like an idiot, because there's no way of knowing whether or not the homing attack is going to work after you get off a spring or not. And I promise you, I'm not just making this up. Some springs work with the homing attack, and some don't. It's random. I just don't get it. And then the final big issue with the gameplay itself that I think I'd bring up, and that's the complete contrast between how fast you can go and how fast the game generally has you going. You see, I haven't mentioned it yet, but if you hold E, you can charge a spin dash, which can send you really far, really fast. It feels completely out of place because all of the other things in the game, like launch pads and boost pads, don't ever send you anywhere near the speed that you can use the spin dash for. And the spin dash oftentimes shoots you so far that you can either way miss whatever you're trying to land on, or just flat out go over large parts of the level and ignore them. Now, this isn't bad all the time. It's really fun sometimes when you just ignore half the level and carve your own path with the spin dash, but it just is so off when the boost pads feel like they barely boost you at all, and all they serve to do is make you have a headache from tilting your camera, and yet the spin dash can launch you 8 miles, and then if you hit a boost pad while you're going 800 miles an hour, it slows you down. It's just so weird. Oh, and wait a minute, I'm just now remembering there was another gameplay problem. I lied. So, somebody made it so that half the fucking checkpoints in the game spawn you facing the wrong way! You spawn backwards! What is this, fucking arcane lineage? Are you serious? How the fuck do the checkpoints spawn you backwards? Guys, what are we doing? That was the most baffling thing, hands down, and I'm sure you can tell. How does that happen? Overall, though, despite all of the issues with the game and the fact that sometimes the level design can be a little questionable with some things that you can pass through that it feels like you shouldn't be able to pass through and you should be able to stand on, other than those small things, the gameplay is still fun to play. Unfortunately, issues with this game don't just relegate themselves to gameplay. One of the other big issues with the game is the fact that there is a consistent and constant problem with load screens. This is the one thing where I would almost not recommend playing the game, because a lot of the time that I spent trying to play the game was more trying to make it work than actually playing. I had to have spent at least 15 to 20 minutes over the entire time I was playing the game stuck in unlimited or infinite load screens, or just restarting the game trying to get it to successfully boot up. This is an obvious major flaw with the game, and I don't even know what to say about it. I don't know if it was just a me problem, but surely it can't be. I'd be shocked if the people who made the game didn't run into it at least a few times while they were playing, and I can tell you that it really takes away from the experience. Now, I've said a lot of negative things, I've been really harsh on the game, but at the end of the day, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed playing the game. And so this is where I'm gonna switch off my critic brain and just talk about how impressed I am by this project in of itself. And the first thing that I want to talk about is level design, because a lot of the level designs here are very well done. There's a pretty decent mix of very linear, straightforward levels, along with a couple really well-designed multi-path levels where you can take several different ways to complete the level, but they never feel confusing. I never got lost, and I always felt like I was making progress, even though I could clearly see different ways of completing the level and different ways of getting through it. It is not easy to do level design, and it's even harder to make a level design that you can beat through multiple different ways, but doesn't confuse the player throughout. It's a little bit hilarious and a little bit sad that the only real times that I got confused while playing the game was on very, very rare occasions where I thought I could jump somewhere where I couldn't and I fell through the map. But most of the time was relegated to checkpoints spawning me the wrong way and then running the wrong way for a while until I realized that I wasn't going the correct direction. But overall, the map design here is super well done. All of the maps are well designed. They look good. And I just have nothing bad to say about it, really. In terms of the mechanics itself, everything aside from the homing attack issues that I mentioned generally works really well. I was kind of scared at first, but there was never an issue of zip lines not working, bounce pads not working, wall runs not working. Nope, everything functioned just fine, and I didn't really run into any bugs with it. And honestly, while not extremely mind-blowing, the fact that they managed to incorporate 3 unique boss fights into the game that all have different ways of beating the boss is just something that I'm really impressed with. It's just so clear to me that this game was made with so much passion behind it, and also so much respect for the people that came before them. I mentioned earlier on in the video about how this is pretty much just a directly inspired and almost borderline ripoff of Sonic Adventure, but one of the things that I really didn't expect was that after completing the game and getting to the end of it, in the credits of the game, which I'll mention are really funny because they're all the same 2 people listed under like 800 different roles. After the credits for the people who made Pirate Adventure, there's the entire credits roll for the Sonic Adventure team, the people who made the original game, and that's something that they didn't have to do. They knew what they were doing, and they're respectful for the original creators, and I have to respect that. And then, of course, there's the fact that most of the things that I've been talking about and the footage I've been showing are of the base game, but there's a completely free expansion pack to the game that's built into the game that's basically just an entirely other game. It's a second game that you can play right from the main menu of this one after you complete it. And that is just absolutely crazy. Now, I'm sure there's stuff that I'm missing. I didn't really touch on the story because, well, I just didn't want to be mean. It's cringe from start to finish, and I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I ended up skipping through most of the dialogue towards the end because I just couldn't be bothered. And there's some issues in the original game that thankfully are not present in the expansion part of the game, mostly stemming from the hub world that they just didn't really need whatsoever, and forcing you to constantly go between different load zones just to have a conversation with somebody for like 2 minutes, and then immediately go to another load zone to get to the level. That was always a bit annoying, but none of it made me just not want to play. The only thing that made me not want to play was when the game didn't let me play it, and that sucks. Anyways, the game's at like 19 players right now, 20 players, which isn't all that That's surprising for a single player game that you can complete in like 2 hours if you're playing the main game and the expansion game. But this is a really well put together game, and despite all of its problems, is still really fun. So as always, it's going to be linked in the description, and I highly recommend you check it out. Anyways, with that, I'm gonna wrap up here. So if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.